of this year. We would, periodically, occasionally we spoke through an encrypted system. Usually it was encrypted texts. But I have all these.
This is, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the guy that he was just in the news?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he came out that there was a downed craft. We retrieved it with bodies, correct?
Yes. And those were, a lot of this information I was providing to his bosses. And then he was in a field operation to go out and get to places. Now, he never got in to see it firsthand, but he talked to people, of course, that knew about it.
I mean, this actually hit the mainstream media, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yep. So, he's not the principal person I've been dealing with. The principal person would be the equivalent of a 2- or 3-star general if he was still in the military. But I think that, my goal in all of this is that if someone is trying to do this on behalf of the legal government of the United States, I will give them any information I have. But we have a lot. I mean, our repository of intelligence on this by far is the largest in the world, certainly exceeds the legal government of the United States. I will say that for a fact. Now, my concern is that when you go from that to then falling into the clutches of folks in the UFO community, who then start giving you these tall tales of all these horrible things the aliens have been doing, I'm going, yes, but you haven't been read in to that part of the project. So this is like an onion, a stinking onion. You peel 500 layers of this onion back, and there's 500 more. And this is where a little bit of just superficial knowledge is a very dangerous thing, extremely dangerous. And my concern about that is that this is exactly the game that's going to be run on Congress and the White House.
Well, I mean, you're already seeing it. I mean, like I said, look, I don't trust the mainstream media. Anyways.
Well, no, they're an asset of this group.
But
absolutely,
a lot of people do, and a lot of people don't put any legitimacy on anything unless Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, unless they touch it, nobody.
Right.
I'm not going to say nobody because there's a growing. The population that doesn't believe in the mainstream media is just continuously getting larger.
It's probably half the population. Yeah.
But why do you think? I mean, that would be the biggest story in the world. Mm-hmm. We've recovered an ET craft with bodies, and on every news network they're all covering it, and then just like that, it's gone. No photos, no nothing. What happened? Why do you think it just disappeared?
Well, we know why. I mean, in 2001, when we did the first National Press Club event, we had a guy who was on a team that, for several years in the 60s, retrieved the bodies and the craft. And he spoke, and he had all of his information there. His name is Sergeant Clifford Stone. He's in our archive. Go look at it. So the people we just had at the National Press Club, a decorated U-2 pilot who encountered these objects back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, worked at the Lockheed operations and skunk work interface with Ben Rich directly, personally. He didn't get to go into that. But these guys are all available to give testimony. These are firsthand. David Grush was secondhand. He never was principally involved. Stephen Digna, was with 2 Raytheon guys with these man-made Raytheon devices. D.C. Long was in an underground facility out on the Range 19 with some Delta guys, took his dad in, who was a contractor, and they accidentally saw this system levitating a 100-ton concrete block up in the air, along with some giant boulders. Absolutely true. And we had people who were, at other operations that we brought. Now, those are all every one of our 750 Disclosure Project folks are firsthand witnesses, meaning that they weren't people trying to find out like David Grush was. They're people who actually were in there. Interesting that the media won't interview them.
It is.
Though, if they really want to know the truth, why would you want to talk to a field operator who didn't have firsthand information and skip over the people who actually touched the things, saw them? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the public has to ask the question very quickly. how do we get the truth out? I think we're asking everyone to write their member of Congress and their 2 senators and the White House as an activist responsibility as a citizen of the United States and refer to the National Press Club event and the Disclosure Project archive, because we've sent all this in, and say, now we need to see action taken. Now, whether the media, the corporate media, this I honestly believe is controlled by this same corrupt enterprise.
I mean, Doc, they're definitely controlled. I mean, there's multiple videos of them all reporting the exact same shit. I mean,
Right.
It's ridiculous that anybody even watches it anymore.
Well, I mean, it's staged. And the problem with that, they do have, and this is the other big announcement, if there are any attorneys listening, we now have over 150 attorneys and legal professionals on our legal team. And not only will they protect and defend any whistleblowers and the project, but they also we're moving quickly towards issuing a civilian RICO, Racketeer Influence Corrupt Organization lawsuit. Who are going to be in the target? All these corporations and individuals. You can't use a civilian RICO against a government agency, but you can target the individuals and the corporations. That we are going to be doing in concert with this bill, saying now you need to come out of the cold, or you'll be criminally. We can't criminally prosecute, but there is a U.S. civilian RICO against a government agency. But you can target the individuals and the corporations. That we are going to be doing in concert with this bill, saying now you need to come out of the cold, or you'll be criminally. We can't criminally prosecute, but there is a U.S. attorney who's on the team that when we find actionable intelligence and get it introduced into court in a civilian RICO, he would then take it and see if he can pursue it under a criminal statute.
I got another question, and the question is,
Great people have come forward in the last few months. Yeah.
you've had, I don't even know how many different whistleblowers have contacted you guys, and you know, if you're not looking at this with a skeptical eye for anybody, that's
Right.
listening, you should be.
Yeah, you
How
should.
are you deciphering who the legitimate whistleblowers are from the quacks?
First of all, we asked for them to give evidence of they were, who they were, where they were. We want to see a DD-214. We want to see records, and then we check them out. And there's someone who's in our team who has the ability to check them out through the system.
Okay.
Now, even with that, you could be tricked. The best I can do, now remember, we're not the U.S. government with trillions of dollars or the Pentagon with $700 billion. We're a volunteer organization, best we can do. But the other thing is good, because I've debriefed legitimate people for 30 years on this, literally over 1,000 people. Not all of them are in the archive because some of them never wanted their names given to me, but they were legit. So what I say is that if the story doesn't track, and and the other is if what they're sharing comports with the evidence from another source, but they don't know each other, there's no collusion. So then you say, okay, this gentleman in 1980 saw this. This guy in 2009 saw this. And it was essentially the same kind of operation, craft, what have you. They don't know each other. But they're very reluctant. They say, you're not going to believe this. This is what they all say. I said, trust me, I'll probably believe it. But then when you get a points of corroboration, so what I try to do is find multiple points of corroboration.
Okay.
Like we had like a dozen people who knew about the ET concerns, about the nuclear issue. So there's a whole area of multiple points of corroboration. And it's particularly useful when it's a similar event or company or facility, base, where they were there at different times and don't know each other. So then you don't have someone being able to match up their stories in some tall tale. So I have my own approach to this.
Okay.
But obviously we don't have at this point. Now the difference is that when we launch this RICO, civilian RICO action, we'll have subpoena power and also discovery. So we can go to these spaces. Now we'll have to find a federal judge who will certify it. We'll see.
I'm glad we went through that because it is, it's tough to take somebody's word for things like this, and so
I
think
don't.
it's important to.
I do the best I can. Now we almost were tricked by a guy back in 1997 who was coming to the briefings I set up for Congress back then, offsite at the Westin Hotel in Georgetown, and Edgar Mitchell was there. A bunch of fun people were there, and it turned out he was telling a tall tale. And my military advisor at that time was at a bar, and he started talking about stuff that this guy knew absolutely was false. So I had him escorted off the premises. So, you basically get one bite at the apple with us at telling something that ends up to be nonsense. So that's kind of our policy.